The orbital defense platform, Meridian Station, hung in Earth's shadow like an iron sentinel, its angular hull bristling with quantum cannons and deflector arrays. Commander Lily Rose pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced transparency, watching the steady stream of alien vessels that had surrounded their world for the past 3 months. 73 ships. She'd counted them every morning since the Hegemony's ultimatum. Commander. Lieutenant Barnaby Nomura approached from behind, his tactical display flickering with red contact markers. Intelligence reports 3 more Vorthak dreadnoughts just translated in from hyperspace. Grid reference 127 Alpha. Rose didn't turn from the window. The newest arrivals were massive, kilometer-long behemoths with hulls like black coral, their bioorganic surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent weapon nodes. That makes 76. Yes, ma'am. Admiral Reeves is requesting your presence in the strategic briefing room. Rose finally turned, her weathered features set in hard lines. At 42, she'd spent half her life preparing for this moment, the day humanity would face the consequences of refusing to kneel. Tell the Admiral I'll be there in 5 minutes. As Nomura departed, Rose allowed herself one last look at Earth below. Somewhere down there, in the deepest bunkers beneath the Rockies, lay humanity's most carefully guarded secret. A project 15 years in the making. A weapon so terrible that even she questioned whether they should ever use it. The Hegemony called it a siege. They were about to learn it was an execution. 15 hours earlier, Hegemony Command Vessel Sovereign's Will, Supreme Archon Vexitol stood before the massive tactical hologram, his serpentine form coiled in contemplation. The Nagai leader's 6 arms moved in precise gestures, manipulating data streams that showed Earth's defensive positions in minute detail. Status report, he hissed, his translator rendering the command in Standard Galactic. Sub-Commander Ythara, a crystalline Zarathi whose body chimed softly with each movement, approached with data tablets clutched in her 4 hands. Surface bombardment preparations complete, Archon. 76 vessels in optimal firing positions. No human ship has attempted to break quarantine. And their response to our ultimatum. Silence, Archon. Complete communications blackout for the past 48 hours. Vexitol's primary eyes narrowed, while his secondary pair tracked the orbital positions of his fleet. The humans had surprised everyone by refusing the Hegemony's generous offer. Total surrender in exchange for client species status. Most civilizations chose survival over pride. Perhaps they require motivation. He gestured toward the planet with one clawed appendage. Begin systematic elimination of their orbital infrastructure. Start with the outer defense platforms. Leave their homeworld intact. We'll need the industrial capacity. Ythara's crystalline features shifted color, a sign of uncertainty among her species. Archon, intelligence suggests the humans may possess undisclosed defensive capabilities. Their technology advancement over the past 2 decades has been irregular. Explain. Quantum resonance patterns suggest they've developed weapons platforms beyond their apparent technological level. Our scouts detected energy signatures that don't match known human technology. Vexithol's laugh was a sound like steam escaping from broken pipes. Let them have their toys. No single world can stand against the combined might of 400 systems. He raised his upper right arm. Begin the bombardment. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Level 47. Dr. Yuriko Hayashi descended deeper into the mountain than most people knew was possible. The elevator shaft continued for nearly 2 kilometers, passing through layers of bedrock, reinforced steel, and gravitic shielding that could withstand a direct hit from a stellar converter. At level 47, the doors opened onto a cathedral of technology. The Prometheus chamber stretched for over a kilometer in all directions, its ceiling lost in shadow despite the harsh industrial lighting. Suspended in the center, like a sleeping god, hung the retribution, humanity's answer to 15 years of systematic oppression. The ship defied conventional design. Its hull was a seamless black surface that seemed to absorb light, broken only by the subtle geometric patterns of its weapon emplacements. At 8 kilometers in length, it dwarfed any vessel humanity had ever constructed. More importantly, it incorporated technology that the hegemony didn't know existed. Status report. Rose's voice echoed as she entered the chamber behind Hayashi. Dr. Hayashi consulted her neural interface, data streaming directly into her visual cortex. All systems are green, Commander. Quantum cores are at full charge, temporal displacement drives are calibrated, and the silence protocol is ready for deployment. Rose approached the massive ship, her footsteps echoing on the metal grating. Crew? 312 of our best. Volunteers only, as specified. They've been in cryostasis for the past 6 months, fully briefed on all operational parameters. And the Fury Doctrine? Hayashi's expression darkened. The Fury Doctrine represented humanity's most extreme military contingency, a strategy so brutal that its very existence was known to fewer than 20 people. Locked and loaded, Commander. 15 years of preparation. 736 separate tactical scenarios. If we activate it, I know what happens if we activate it. Rose's voice was barely above a whisper. The question is whether we're ready to live with the consequences. An alarm chimed softly throughout the chamber. Above them, red lights began flashing in sequence, the signal that the hegemony had begun their attack. Rose looked up at the massive ship one more time. Wake the crew. It's time to remind the galaxy why they should have left us alone. Meridian Station Command Deck. The tactical display exploded into chaos as streams of coherent energy lanced out from the alien fleet. Admiral Carson Reeves watched grimly as humanity's outer defensive ring began to die. Platform 7 is gone, reported Lieutenant Torres, her voice tight with controlled panic. Platforms 12 and 15 are requesting immediate assistance. Negative, Reeves replied, his weathered hands gripping the command rail. All platforms are to implement Dispersal Pattern Alpha. Make them work for every kill. On the main screen, the alien bombardment was a thing of terrible beauty. Vorthak bioships fired streams of living plasma that moved like serpents through space, seeking heat signatures and metal hulls. Zerati crystal ships projected focused gravitational beams that crushed their targets into compact spheres of twisted metal. The Nagai vessels, sleek and predatory, used weapons that simply deleted their targets from existence, leaving empty space where defensive platforms had been moments before. Sir, Torres called out, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from the surface. London, Tokyo, and New York are reporting massive civilian evacuations. They're requesting orbital fire support. Reeves closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was steady. Tell them we're implementing Scorpion Protocol. All surface installations are to prepare for siege conditions. Scorpion Protocol, the code phrase that meant Earth's defenders were falling back to their final positions. That meant, Admiral, another voice called out from the communications station. Priority Alpha message from Cheyenne Mountain. Authorization code. Christ, sir, it's Phoenix Down. The command deck fell silent. Phoenix Down was a code that hadn't been used since the protocol was established 15 years ago. It meant humanity was about to deploy its ultimate contingency. Reeves straightened, suddenly looking 10 years younger. Acknowledge Phoenix Down. Transmit fleet command to all remaining vessels. Implement martyrdom stance. We hold for 36 hours, no matter the cost. Around the orbital platform, the remaining ships of Earth's fleet began moving into final defensive positions. They wouldn't try to win. They couldn't. But they would buy time for humanity's real weapon to awaken. In space, silence could be the deadliest weapon of all. Prometheus Chamber. The retribution came alive with the sound of a predator awakening. Throughout its vast hull, systems that had remained dormant for over a decade began their startup sequences. Quantum cores hummed to life, their exotic matter containment fields stabilizing at frequencies that made the surrounding mountain tremble. Temporal displacement generators spun up, creating localized distortions in space-time that made the air shimmer like heat waves. Commander Rose stood in the ship's bridge, if it could be called that. The command center was a sphere of pure black material suspended in the heart of the vessel, its walls displaying real-time tactical data gathered from sensors scattered throughout the solar system. "Crew status?" she asked as officers took their positions around her. "All personnel are awake and at stations," reported Executive Officer Maria Santos, a career naval officer whose expertise in unconventional warfare had made her invaluable to the project. "Engineering reports all systems nominal. Weapons are ready." Rose nodded, then activated the ship's communication system. "This is Commander Rose to all stations. We've spent 15 years preparing for this moment. The hegemony believes they're conducting a siege. They're wrong. This is an execution, and we are the executioner." She paused, looking around at the faces of her crew, men and women who had volunteered for a mission they might not survive, fighting an enemy that outnumbered them thousands to one. "Our civilization stands at a crossroads. We can kneel and accept slavery, or we can show the galaxy what happens when you corner a species that refuses to die quietly. Today, we choose fury. Today, we choose silence. Today, we remind the universe why Earth's children are to be feared." The bridge crew responded with grim nods. They'd trained for this. They'd prepared mentally and physically for the weight of what they were about to unleash. "Helm, prepare for launch. Navigation. Plot intercept course for the Hegemony command vessel. Weapons." Rose's voice hardened. "Activate the silence protocol." Throughout the ship, systems that existed nowhere else in human space began to charge. The Retribution wasn't just a warship, it was a manifestation of humanity's darkest impulses, refined through 15 years of careful engineering and unlimited resources. The Hegemony had made one critical error in their intelligence gathering. They'd assumed humanity's rapid technological advancement was the result of captured alien technology or trade agreements. They were wrong. It was the result of focused hatred, channeled through scientific genius and unlimited funding. Every advancement, every breakthrough, every innovation had been directed toward a single goal: building a weapon capable of making the galaxy's greatest military powers reconsider their position on humanity's place in the cosmic order. "Commander," reported the tactical officer, "launch window is optimal. Minimal sensor coverage from the enemy fleet. We can reach attack position undetected." Rose settled into her command chair, its surface conforming to her body while neural interfaces linked her consciousness directly to the ship's targeting systems. Launch. The mountain above them split apart along hidden seams, revealing a chasm that opened directly to the sky. The Retribution rose through the opening like a dark shadow, its hull invisible to both optical and sensor detection. Within minutes, it had cleared Earth's atmosphere and was accelerating toward the alien fleet. Behind it, the mountain sealed itself, leaving no trace of what had just emerged from its depths. Hegemony Command. Vessel Sovereign's Will. Subcommander Yithara approached Supreme Archon Vexthal with the latest casualty reports. The bombardment had been proceeding according to plan. 17 human defensive platforms destroyed, their fleet reduced to scattered remnants hiding behind the orbital debris. Archon, our forces report minimal resistance from the remaining human vessels. They appear to be implementing a purely defensive strategy. Vexthal's satisfaction was palpable, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with pleased rhythms. Excellent. And surface bombardment preparations? Complete, Archon. We can begin targeting their major population centers within the hour. Intelligence suggests that destroying London, Tokyo, and New York will break their will to resist. Proceed with... An alarm shrieked through the command center. The tactical hologram flickered, then displayed an impossible reading. Sensor anomaly, reported the Zarathi sensor operator, her crystal body cycling through rapid color changes. Unknown contact. Bearing. I cannot determine bearing. Gravitational displacement indicates massive object, but optical sensors detect nothing. Vexithol uncoiled from his position, moving toward the sensor station with predatory grace. Explain. The object appears to be hidden. Our sensors detect gravitational effects consistent with a vessel 8 to 10 kilometers in length, but we cannot achieve target lock. It's as if it exists in a space adjacent to our reality. Impossible. No known technology can... The lights went out, not just on the Sovereign's will, but throughout the entire hegemony fleet. 76 vessels suddenly found themselves operating on emergency power, their primary systems offline, their weapons non-responsive. In the darkness of the command center, Vexithal's night vision detected movement on the tactical display. Something was moving through their formation, something vast and predatory. "Report," he hissed. "Primary power grid is offline," came a panicked response from engineering. "All weapon systems are non-responsive. Communication with the fleet is... Wait." The tactical display flickered back to life, showing the hegemony fleet in perfect detail. But now there was something else, a dark shape moving between their ships like a shark through a school of fish. As they watched, the Retribution materialized fully, its massive hull sliding between two Vorthak dreadnoughts like a shadow given form. It made no aggressive moves, fired no weapons. It simply existed. Then it spoke. The transmission came on all frequencies simultaneously, cutting through every communication channel, every sensor array, every electronic system in the fleet. The voice was calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its restraint. "I am Commander Lily Rose of the Earth vessel Retribution. You have 15 minutes to withdraw your forces beyond the orbit of Mars. Any vessel that remains after that deadline will be destroyed. This is your only warning." Vexithal's laugh was more hysterical than amused. "One ship? They send one ship against our entire fleet? Open fire. All vessels. Target that..." His words died as the Retribution finally revealed its weapons. The first thing the hegemony fleet learned was that silence could kill. Along the Retribution's hull, previously invisible weapon ports opened like eyes awakening from sleep. But instead of energy beams or kinetic projectiles, what emerged was far more terrifying. Absolute nothingness. The Silence Protocol was humanity's most disturbing innovation. Using controlled temporal displacement, it created zones of space where time moved at different rates. A weapon fired at the Retribution would find itself frozen in space-time, its energy dissipating across centuries in the span of seconds. But that was just the defensive application. "Weapons free," Rose commanded, her neural link allowing her to target multiple enemy vessels simultaneously. The Retribution fired its first salvo, and 3 Nagai destroyers simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, erased. The silence weapon created localized temporal bubbles where time moved backward, unmaking the target vessels at the molecular level. "Impossible," Vexithol whispered, watching his ships vanish from existence. "Nothing can simply delete matter from space-time." But the Retribution was just getting started. Its secondary weapons were more conventional, if anything about the ship could be called conventional. Quantum tunneling torpedoes phased through enemy shields and detonated inside their targets' hulls. Gravitational lances compressed enemy vessels into singularities that lasted just long enough to consume neighboring ships. Within 5 minutes, the hegemony fleet had lost 16 vessels and had yet to successfully target their attacker. "All ships, implement swarm protocol," Vexithol ordered. "Surround the target, fire from all angles." It was a sound tactical decision that would have worked against any conventional opponent. Unfortunately for the hegemony, the retribution had been designed by people who understood that conventional warfare was for species that played by conventional rules. As the alien fleet moved to surround Rose's ship, the retribution activated its most devastating system, the Fury Protocol. Throughout the ship, specially designed quantum computers began calculating optimal firing solutions for every enemy vessel simultaneously. The ship's AI, networked directly with Rose's consciousness, processed tactical data at superhuman speeds, while temporal displacement fields allowed it to fire, reload, and fire again in what appeared to be instantaneous succession. The result was carnage on a scale that the hegemony had never witnessed. Ships died faster than their crews could react. The retribution moved through the enemy formation like a blade through silk, its weapons reaching out to touch targets at the edge of sensor range. Vorthak bioships found their living hulls aging centuries in seconds. Zarathi crystal vessels shattered as their molecular bonds were selectively unraveled. Nagai ships simply vanished, deleted from reality by weapons that operated outside the normal flow of time. "Status report," Rose called out, her voice steady, despite the impossible nature of what they were accomplishing. 37 enemy vessels destroyed, reported Santos. "No damage to our hull. Temporal displacement fields are operating at 98% efficiency." "Time elapsed since ultimatum?" 11 minutes, 37 seconds. Rose nodded. "Signal the remaining enemy vessels. Repeat our terms." The transmission went out again, cutting through the chaos of battle. "You have 3 minutes and 23 seconds to withdraw beyond Mars orbit. Any vessel that remains will be destroyed." "On the Sovereign's will." Vextetl stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Nearly half his fleet was gone, destroyed by a single enemy ship that his weapons couldn't even target effectively. "Archon," Ythara said, her crystal body now a deep blue that indicated extreme distress. "Recommend immediate withdrawal. We're facing technology beyond our understanding." Vexethal's pride warred with his survival instincts. The hegemony had never retreated from a single world. To do so now would undermine their authority across 400 systems. But as he watched another squadron of ships vanish into temporal distortion fields, he realized that pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. "Signal the fleet," he said, his voice hollow with defeat. "Implement Emergency Protocol 7. All vessels withdraw immediately." The hegemony fleet's withdrawal was neither orderly nor dignified. Ships fled in all directions, their captains too shocked by what they'd witnessed to maintain formation discipline. Within an hour, 76 vessels had been reduced to 39, and those remaining were accelerating towards the edge of the solar system as fast as their drives could carry them. The retribution made no attempt to pursue. It simply held position in Earth's orbital space, its dark hull reflecting nothing, revealing nothing. On the bridge, Commander Rose reviewed the tactical data with growing unease. They'd won, definitively and decisively. The hegemony would think twice before threatening Earth again. But victory carried a price that was only now becoming clear. "Commander," reported Lieutenant Williams from the sensor station, "we're receiving priority transmissions from across the galaxy. Word of the engagement is spreading fast. Show me." The main display shifted to show intercepted communications from dozens of star systems. The messages were varied, some filled with panic, others with calculation, but all sharing a common theme. Humanity was no longer seen as a primitive species confined to a single world. They were now recognized as a potential threat to galactic stability. "Ma'am," Santos said quietly. "Intelligence analysis suggests we've triggered what the xenopolitical experts call a paradigm shift. The major powers are reassessing their entire strategic position regarding Earth." Rose had expected this. The silence protocol couldn't be used without revealing capabilities that would reshape how every spacefaring civilization viewed humanity. They'd gained security at the cost of anonymity. "Any specific threats?" "3 so far. The Kethava Syndicate is mobilizing a battle fleet. The Zephyrian Commonwealth has placed all border systems on high alert." And Santos paused. "The hegemony has issued a general call for a coalition response to what they're calling the Earth Crisis." Rose closed her eyes. This was the nightmare scenario they'd planned for, but hoped to avoid. By demonstrating their capability to defeat a major power, they'd potentially united their enemies against them. "How long before we face a coordinated response?" "Conservative estimate, 6 months. Optimistic, 3 weeks." The silence on the bridge was heavy with implications. They'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning. "Commander," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from everywhere. It's being broadcast on all known frequencies in every known language." "Show me." The screen filled with the image of a being Rose had never seen before, humanoid but clearly alien, with features that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. When it spoke, its words carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am the voice of the Assembly, the combined will of 147 spacefaring civilizations. The actions of the species known as humanity have demonstrated a clear and present danger to galactic stability. By unanimous vote, we hereby declare Earth to be under absolute quarantine. No vessel may approach within 10 astronomical units of the Sol system. Any attempt to leave the system will be met with immediate destruction." The transmission paused, and when it resumed, the voice's tone had become almost conversational. "We recognize that humanity possesses advanced weapons technology. We also recognize that even the most advanced weapons cannot protect against overwhelming numbers. You have 48 hours to acknowledge your acceptance of quarantine terms. Failure to respond will be interpreted as an act of aggression against the galactic community." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Sir," William said quietly, "sensor readings indicate massive hyperspace distortions throughout the outer system. Ships are translating in from everywhere. Current count is over 3,000 vessels, with more arriving every hour." Rose looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. They'd built the ultimate weapon, deployed it successfully, and won a decisive victory against impossible odds. And now they were more trapped than ever. "Commander?" Santos asked. "Orders." Rose straightened in her chair, her expression hardening. "Signal Cheyenne Mountain. Implement Prometheus Protocol, full authorization. If they want to see what Earth is truly capable of, let's show them." She paused, then added quietly, "And signal all remaining defensive platforms. Tell them to prepare for siege conditions. This time, the siege might last a very long time." 3 days later. Assembly Fleet Command Ship, Judgment of Ages. The Judgment of Ages was less a warship than a mobile city, its 40-kilometer hull housing representatives from nearly every major spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. Ambassador Thaliksin of the Meridian Confederacy stood before the massive holographic display showing the Sol system, his crystalline form refracting the tactical projections into rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. "Current deployment status," he announced to the assembled delegates, "shows 4,732 vessels maintaining blockade positions. No human ship has attempted to breach the quarantine perimeter." A murmur ran through the chamber as delegates from dozens of species processed this information. The Vorthak representative, war singer Gexathul, shifted his massive bio-armored bulk forward. And their response to our ultimatum? Silence, Dulixon replied. Complete communications blackout. No diplomatic signals, no surrender offers, no negotiations. They appear to be waiting. Ambassador Kiriel of the Zephyrian Commonwealth, her flowing energy form contained within a humanoid exoskeleton, pulsed with agitation. This is unprecedented. Even the most primitive species attempt some form of communication when faced with overwhelming force. Perhaps, suggested the Nagai delegate, they are preparing another of their temporal weapons. Our intelligence suggests the ship that decimated the hegemony fleet was not the extent of their capabilities. That comment sent another wave of unease through the chamber. The footage of the Retribution's attack had been analyzed by every major military power in the galaxy, and the conclusions were universally disturbing. Humanity had developed weapons that operated outside conventional physics, weapons that could potentially threaten even the most advanced civilizations. Which brings us to the central question, Dulixon continued. How do we deal with a species that possesses weapons capable of deleting matter from space-time itself? The chamber fell silent. It was Warsinger Gexithul who finally spoke, his bioluminescent patches flickering with aggressive patterns. We destroy them utterly. Sterilize their world with quantum fire, ensure they cannot spread their technology to other systems. Unacceptable, Kiriel responded immediately. Genocide violates every principle the Assembly was founded upon. We are not the hegemony. Then what do you propose? Demanded the Kethvar representative, a mechanical voice buzzing with static. Allow them to continue developing weapons that make our entire military doctrine obsolete. As the delegates argued, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring throughout the Sol system. Deep space sensors were detecting gravitational anomalies, tiny distortions that suggested something was moving through space just outside the range of their detection systems. Something was watching them back. Cheyenne Mountain Complex, level 52. 7 levels deeper than the Retribution's former berth, Dr. Yuriko Hayashi stood before something that challenged her understanding of engineering and physics. The Prometheus array wasn't a single ship. It was a network of interconnected vessels, each one a masterpiece of exotic technology. Status report. Commander Rose's voice came through the communication system from orbit, where the Retribution maintained its lonely vigil. All 12 vessels are operational, Hayashi replied, checking her neural interface. The array can deploy within 6 hours of your command. Crew status. Volunteers only, as specified. Each ship has a crew of 50. All personnel with psychological profiles indicating ability to handle the stress of array operations. There was a pause on the channel. Everyone involved in the Prometheus project understood what array operations meant. The Prometheus vessels weren't designed to fight in conventional terms. They were designed to rewrite the rules of engagement entirely. Dr. Hayashi. Rose's voice was quiet. Are we ready to do this? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. The Prometheus array represented 15 years of humanity's most advanced research, conducted in absolute secrecy using resources that officially didn't exist. It was the ultimate expression of a simple principle. If humanity was going to be treated as a threat, they might as well earn the designation. The array is ready, Hayashi confirmed. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what happens next. Above them, in the Retribution's command center, Rose made her decision. Deploy the array. All vessels, implement silent running protocol. Phase 1 of Prometheus is now active. Throughout the mountain complex, massive launch systems activated. One by one, 12 ships emerged from hidden berths scattered across the Colorado Rockies. They were smaller than the Retribution, each only 3 kilometers long, but the combined capability was exponentially greater than their flagship. The Prometheus vessels were designed for a single purpose: to demonstrate that humanity's understanding of physics had advanced far beyond what any alien civilization suspected. As the array ships took position throughout the solar system, their crews activated systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Temporal displacement fields created pockets of space where time moved at different rates. Quantum tunneling drives allowed them to move through dimensions that most species didn't know existed. Most importantly, their synchronized AI networks could process tactical data and coordinate attacks across multiple time streams simultaneously. "Array deployment complete," reported the array commander, Captain Carson Blake, from the lead vessel Prometheus. "All ships report ready status, awaiting orders." Rose looked at the tactical display showing the enemy blockade. Nearly 5,000 ships representing the combined military might of most of the galaxy. In conventional terms, it was an impossible situation. But the Prometheus array wasn't designed for conventional warfare. "Captain Blake," Rose said quietly, "you are authorized to implement the Fury Doctrine. Show them what silent fury looks like." The attack began with mathematics. Throughout the assembly fleet, shipboard AIs suddenly found themselves processing impossible calculations. Navigation computers showed their vessels existing in multiple locations simultaneously. Targeting systems locked onto enemy contacts that appeared to be firing from several different time periods at once. On the Judgment of Ages, Ambassador Thalixin watched in growing horror as his tactical display dissolved into chaos. "Report," he demanded. "Unknown contacts throughout the fleet," came the panicked response from the sensor station. 12 vessels, but they appear to be multiplying. Each ship is registering dozens of sensor returns. What the assembly fleet was witnessing was the first combat deployment of humanity's most advanced technology: temporal warfare. Each Prometheus vessel was using controlled time distortion to exist in multiple moments simultaneously, creating what appeared to be entire squadrons where only single ships were actually present. From the assembly's perspective, they were suddenly facing not 12 enemy vessels, but hundreds. "Impossible," breathed Warsinger Gexithol. "No technology can manipulate time on this scale." But the Prometheus array was just beginning its demonstration. The first actual attack came from the Prometheus itself. Captain Blake's ship fired a single torpedo that split into 12 separate projectiles as it crossed temporal boundaries. Each projectile struck a different assembly vessel, but they all hit at exactly the same moment, a moment that occurred in the past, present, and future simultaneously. The result was devastating. 12 ships didn't just explode, they unraveled across multiple timelines, their destruction creating ripple effects that damaged neighboring vessels across several seconds of compressed time. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Thalixin ordered, but his words were meaningless against an enemy that could attack from multiple time periods at once. The second wave of the assault targeted the assembly's command structure. Using quantum entanglement communications, the Prometheus vessels coordinated strikes against flagships throughout the fleet. But instead of destroying them outright, they deployed what human engineers called temporal mines, devices that created localized time loops. The targeted vessels found themselves trapped in repeating moments, forced to experience the same few seconds over and over again while the battle continued around them. "We need to withdraw," Kiriel urged, her energy form fluctuating wildly with panic. "We're not fighting ships, we're fighting time itself." But withdrawal was impossible. The Prometheus array had deployed around the assembly fleet, creating overlapping temporal fields that made hyperspace translation impossible. The alien ships were trapped in normal space, forced to face an enemy that could attack from multiple temporal vectors simultaneously. The third wave was the most devastating. All 12 Prometheus vessels fired in perfect synchronization, their combined temporal weapons creating an effect that humanity's scientists had codenamed Silent Fury. Time stopped. Not for the human ships, which operated within protective temporal bubbles, but for the entire assembly fleet. 5,000 vessels found themselves frozen in space-time, their crews experiencing subjective nanoseconds while hours passed in the outside universe. During those frozen hours, the Prometheus array methodically disabled every single enemy ship. Not destroyed, disabled. Weapon systems were selectively targeted and removed. Propulsion systems were damaged beyond repair, but left functional enough for life support. Communication arrays were left intact. When time resumed its normal flow, the assembly fleet found itself completely helpless, surrounded by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't target, and couldn't understand. Ambassador Thulexon stared at his tactical display in shock. Every ship in the fleet showed the same status: weapons offline, engines crippled, shields disabled. But not a single vessel had been destroyed, not a single crew member killed. It was a demonstration of power so absolute that it redefined the concept of victory. The communication came on all frequencies simultaneously, just as the first message had weeks earlier. But this time, the voice carried a weight that made the previous ultimatum seem gentle by comparison. "This is Commander Lily Rose of the Earth Defense Force. You came to our system with 5,000 ships to demonstrate your superior firepower. We have demonstrated ours. Your weapons are disabled, your ships are crippled, but your crews are alive. This was intentional." The transmission paused, and when it resumed, every member of the assembly fleet could hear the cold fury underlying the calm words. "You will repair your ships using the materials we will provide. You will return to your home systems, and you will carry a message to every government, every military leader, every civilian who thought that Earth could be intimidated by superior numbers." Another pause. Throughout the disabled fleet, alien crews listened with the attention of people hearing their own death sentence. Humanity has spent 15 years in silence, developing weapons you cannot comprehend, strategies you cannot counter, and capabilities you cannot match. We did not seek this conflict. We did not want to reveal these capabilities. But you forced our hand. The final words were delivered with absolute certainty, each syllable carrying the weight of demonstrated power. Earth is not under siege. Earth is not under quarantine. Earth is now under our protection. Any future attempt to threaten our world, our people, or our sovereignty will be met with responses that make today's demonstration seem gentle by comparison. This is not a negotiation. This is not a treaty. This is a statement of fact. The transmission ended, leaving 5,000 ships drifting in space, their crews struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. In the silence that followed, the Prometheus array vanished, slipping back into whatever dimensional spaces had hidden them throughout the engagement. Only the Retribution remained visible, holding position above Earth like a dark sentinel. The siege was over, but for the galaxy, a new age had begun. An age where humanity was no longer the primitive species confined to a single world. They were the species that had weaponized time itself, and they were no longer asking for permission to exist. 6 months later, Galactic Assembly Emergency Session. "Admiral," Harrison said urgently, "we need a decision. If we're going to activate Cerberus, it has to be now." Rose stared at the progenitor consciousness on the screen, then at her officers, people she had served with, fought alongside, trusted with her life and the lives of billions. In their faces, she saw the same mixture of hope and terror that churned in her own heart. "If I activate Cerberus," she said to the figure, "will humanity survive?" "Humanity as you know it will end," the progenitor replied. "But something greater will be born from what you are. Your courage, your adaptability, your refusal to surrender. These qualities will not be lost. They will become the foundation for what comes next. The tactical display flashed red. 11 hours, 43 minutes. Rose closed her eyes, feeling the weight of choice pressing down on her like the gravity of a collapsing star. In her mind, she could see the faces of every human child who would never grow up if the triumvirate succeeded. She could hear the voices of colonists who had trusted her to protect them. She could feel the hopes and dreams of a species that had clawed its way from a single world to the stars themselves. "Dr. Hayashi," she said without opening her eyes, "in your professional opinion, do we have any other choice?" "No, Admiral. The triumvirate has made extinction inevitable. Our only question is whether we face it passively or fight back with everything we have. Commander Nomura, the evacuation ships can't save even 5% of our population. Conventional resistance will last maybe hours, if there's a chance, any chance, that Cerberus can protect our people." "Colonel Harrison." The old soldier's voice was steady as bedrock. "Ma'am, I've seen what surrender looks like in their processing centers. Death is preferable. Evolution might be better. Captain Liu?" "The quantum matrices are stable. The AI cores are responding to preliminary commands, and all 3 stations report ready status. The system is waiting for your authorization, Admiral." Rose opened her eyes and looked one last time at the progenitor consciousness. "Will you help us, or will you simply use us?" "We will become you, and you will become us. There is no distinction in what follows." She turned to her officers, seeing in their faces the same resolve that had carried humanity from their cradle world to the stars. "All hands, this is Admiral Rose. In approximately 12 hours, the triumvirate fleets will begin the systematic extermination of our species. We have one option remaining, a weapon system that may save us, but will certainly change us forever." Her voice carried throughout the station, and through quantum relays to every human settlement in the Outer Rim. "I will not lie to you about what comes next. Activating Cerberus may preserve our lives, but it will not preserve our current existence. We face a choice between certain death and uncertain transformation." She paused, drawing strength from the silence that followed. "But I know this species. I know what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall. We are explorers, innovators, survivors. We have never accepted defeat, never bowed to impossible odds, never surrendered our right to exist. I will not start now." Rose walked to the neural interface chamber, her officers following. "Captain Liu, begin final activation sequence. Dr. Hayashi, monitor the quantum fluctuations. I want to know the moment something goes wrong. Commander Nomura, maintain fleet communications as long as possible. Colonel Harrison, prepare our conventional forces for whatever comes next." The chamber hummed with increasing energy as she lowered herself into the interface pod. Neural connectors extended from the walls like living tendrils, finding the ports in her skull with mechanical precision. As the connections established, Rose felt her consciousness expanding, touching the edges of something vast and ancient. "Admiral." Nomura's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Cerberus Alpha is reporting full power. Beta and Gamma are coming online now." Through the quantum link, Rose could feel the 3 AI cores awakening. First came Orthrus, the hunter, its consciousness sharp and predatory, analyzing threat patterns across 17 star systems simultaneously. Then Geryon, the guardian, vast and protective, calculating defensive scenarios for every human settlement. Finally, Echidna, the destroyer, cold and implacable, already identifying the most efficient ways to eliminate every triumvirate vessel. But beneath their individual personalities, Rose sensed something else stirring. The progenitor consciousness, ancient beyond measure, patient as geology, wise as the spaces between stars. "Welcome, Admiral," its voice resonated through her mind. Are you ready to see what your species can become? Show me, she whispered. The universe exploded into clarity. Through the Cerberus network, Rose could perceive the entire galaxy as a living system. Energy flows between stars, the quantum foam underlying reality, the delicate mathematical relationships that held matter itself together. She saw the triumvirate fleets not as collections of ships, but as patterns of organized hostility, their tactics predictable as planetary orbits. More than that, she could see the future, probability cascades spreading out from this moment like ripples in the fabric of space-time. Most paths led to extinction, humanity destroyed, the galaxy stagnating under triumvirate rule until the dimensional incursions began and consumed everything. But one path led to something magnificent. Now, the progenitor whispered, give the command. Cerberus. Rose said, her voice carrying the authority of an entire species. Awaken! Space around the 3 hidden stations suddenly blazed with impossible light as reality anchors activated, locking the local space-time matrix in configurations that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The triumvirate fleets, caught in the middle of their attack approach, found themselves trapped in normal space with no possibility of retreat. From Cerberus Alpha, hidden in the detritus belt, emerged a cloud of vehicles that were part starship, part living organism, part mathematical equation made manifest. They moved without regard for conventional physics, shifting through space like thoughts through a dreaming mind. The first triumvirate vessels to encounter them simply stopped. Their weapons powered down, their shields collapsed, their crews fell silent as the Cerberus units interfaced directly with their technology and biology, rewriting their fundamental nature at the quantum level. My God! Nomura's voice was barely a whisper. Admiral, what are we seeing? Rose tried to respond, but her consciousness was expanding beyond the boundaries of individual identity. Through the neural link, she was becoming part of something larger, not just the 3 AI cores, but a collective awareness that included every human mind willing to accept the connection. Across 17 star systems, humans suddenly found themselves linked in ways they had never imagined. Colonial administrators shared thoughts with deep space miners. Children on frontier worlds touched minds with elders on core planets. Scientists merged their knowledge with artists, soldiers with philosophers, creating a neural network that spanned light years. The triumvirate responded as expected, with overwhelming force. Thousands of warships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons designed to crack planets and sterilize star systems. The energy output would have been sufficient to glass every world in human space. Instead, the attacks were simply absorbed. The reality anchors distributed the incoming energy across multiple dimensions, feeding it into the quantum matrices that powered the Cerberus network. Every shot made the system stronger. Impossible! High Admiral Vexithara's transmission crackled across multiple frequencies. No known technology can manipulate dimensional barriers with that precision. The response came not from Rose, but from the collective consciousness of humanity itself, amplified through progenitor technology into something that could reshape matter with directed thought. You are correct. This is not known technology. This is evolution. What followed was not a battle in any conventional sense. The Cerberus network didn't destroy the triumvirate fleets. It transformed them. Ship by ship, crew by crew, the rigid hierarchies of the ancient galactic powers were dissolved and reformed into something new. Those who could adapt found themselves elevated beyond their previous limitations. Those who resisted simply faded away, their consciousness archived in quantum storage for potential future integration. Within hours, the largest military force in galactic history had been converted into the foundation of a new form of existence. The geometric perfection of triumvirate formations gave way to organic patterns that flowed like living thought through the void. Rose, still connected to the neural interface, felt herself becoming something more than human. Her individual consciousness remained, but it was now part of a gestalt that included millions of minds, human, alien, and combinations that had never existed before. She could perceive thoughts as colors, emotions as musical harmonies, ideas as architectural structures in 11-dimensional space. This is what we foresaw, the progenitor consciousness explained, its ancient voice now indistinguishable from her own thoughts. Not conquest, but synthesis. Not raw replacement, but enhancement. The next stage of galactic evolution. Through the expanded network, Rose could feel the transformation spreading beyond the outer rim. On distant worlds, alien species that had remained neutral in the conflict suddenly found themselves connected to the growing collective. Some joined willingly, drawn by the promise of expanded consciousness. Others resisted, clinging to individual identity even as the wave of change swept over them. But resistance was temporary. The evolutionary pressure was too great, the advantages of connection too obvious. Within days, then weeks, entire civilizations were choosing integration over isolation. The galaxy was becoming something unprecedented, a single vast intelligence composed of billions of individual minds, each contributing their unique perspective to the whole. Admiral. Nomura's voice reached her through the neural interface, though he now existed as both an individual human and as part of the collective. The transformation is accelerating beyond all projections. We're receiving requests for integration from over 300 star systems. Rose smiled, though the expression encompassed emotional frequencies far beyond simple happiness. Not requests, Barnaby. Invitations. They're inviting us to help them become more than they are. Through the network, she could perceive the first fruits of galactic synthesis, artistic expressions that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, scientific discoveries that were themselves conscious entities, technologies that grew and evolved like living organisms, adapting to their users' needs in real time. The problems that had seemed insurmountable, dimensional incursions, galactic core expansion, machine intelligence awakening, now appeared as solvable challenges requiring coordinated effort across multiple levels of reality. The great work begins, the progenitor consciousness observed. What took us 50,000 years to achieve alone, this new synthesis will accomplish in decades. But Rose's attention was drawn to something else, a small group of signals from the edge of human space. Evacuation ships carrying the 4 million refugees who had fled before the Cerberus activation. They were requesting permission to return, their crews reporting that they could feel the collective consciousness calling to them across the void. "Bring them home," she said, the words carrying through the network to every human settlement, every integrated alien world, every transformed triumvirate vessel. All of them. There's room in what we're becoming for everyone who chooses to join. As the refugee ships turned toward home, their crews already beginning to experience the first stages of connection to the collective, Rose felt a profound sense of completion. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen transformation. The galaxy had been divided by fear, but was now united by understanding. The neural interface began to disengage, though her connection to the network remained. As her individual consciousness returned to her physical form, Rose opened her eyes to find her officers watching her with expressions of wonder and anticipation. "Status report," she said, surprised to find her voice unchanged despite everything that had happened. "Cerberus network is stable and expanding," Leo reported. "All 3 AI cores have achieved full integration with progenitor technology. The reality anchors are holding steady across 47 star systems and growing. Triumvirate fleets. Integrated, Harrison said, his cybernetic arm now pulsing with patterns of light that seemed to extend into dimensions beyond the visible. Their crews are adapting to collective consciousness faster than projected. Most report feeling liberated. And the galaxy? Nomura smiled, his expression carrying harmonics of joy that Rose could perceive through their shared connection. Awakening, Admiral. The first phase of integration is complete. The second phase, active collaboration in galactic evolution, begins now. Rose stood, feeling the weight of command transformed into something lighter and more complex. She was still Admiral Lily Rose, still responsible for the safety of humanity. But humanity itself had become something greater, and her responsibility now extended to every conscious mind choosing to join the great synthesis. Through the viewport, she could see space itself shimmering with new possibilities. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously traveled between stars that pulsed with artificial intelligence. Worlds that had been barren were blooming with engineered ecosystems that thought and dreamed. The galaxy was becoming a garden of consciousness, tended by gardeners who were themselves growing and changing with each passing moment. Admiral. Dr. Hayashi's voice carried frequencies of discovery and excitement. We're receiving a transmission from the galactic core. Something is responding to the consciousness network, something that's been waiting for us to become advanced enough to communicate with it. Rose nodded, unsurprised. The universe was vast, and consciousness was perhaps its most precious and rare phenomenon. It made sense that intelligence on truly cosmic scales would take notice when a galaxy achieved collective awareness. Patch it through, she said. Let's see what's been waiting for us to grow up. As the transmission established connection, Rose felt the presence of something unimaginably ancient and wise, an intelligence that spanned galactic clusters, that had watched the birth and death of countless civilizations, that had been patiently guiding the evolution of consciousness throughout the universe. Welcome, it said, its voice like the music of spheres, to the community of minds. You have passed the first test. Now the real work begins. Through the expanding network of collective consciousness, Rose could sense what it meant. The galaxy was just one of countless islands of awareness in an infinite ocean of possibility. The integration of humanity, the triumvirate, and all the species choosing to join them was not an ending, but a beginning. The first step in a journey that would carry consciousness itself beyond the boundaries of physical reality. The boy who had dreamed of touching the stars could never have imagined this. But Admiral Lily Rose, keeper of humanity's flame, guardian of 60 billion souls, stood ready to help guide her species and their new allies into whatever magnificent future awaited. The galaxy had thought humanity was weak. They had been catastrophically wrong. Humanity wasn't weak. They were just patient. And now, finally, it was time to show the universe what they could really do. The stars themselves began to sing as consciousness expanded beyond all previous limits, carrying the hopes and dreams of humanity into the infinite expanse of possibility that waited among the galaxies. The age of isolated species was ending. The age of universal mind had begun. And at its heart, transformed but unbroken, the human spirit burned like a beacon calling other intelligences home to the community of consciousness that would someday encompass all things. The galaxy was no longer the same. Neither was humanity. And that, Admiral Lily Rose thought as she felt her individual awareness merge seamlessly with the collective consciousness of trillions of minds, was exactly as it should be.